worst iteration of government I've ever experienced.
What do you mean?
Well, I'm gonna let you in on a couple things. After Pred got elected last Sunday, there was an attempt by a BCSO officer to issue a warrant on him. The warrant turned out to be bad, but they still tried to press the charges on him. Why? Because Blaine County didn't want a new sheriff, right? They needed to protect themselves. Couple days go by, right? My office is cooking. His office is cooking. Hell, we even had a planned meeting on Monday where Pred said we need to sit down with Justice Angel and discuss residencies and work on that whole thing. And even though I was very against it, because I've already learned the lesson that any conversations with select individuals, you don't get anywhere. It's not constructive. It is not, here's my position, there's yours, let's like parlay, let's find a middle ground. It's kind of like you end up in a loop of someone asking irrelevant questions that distract away from where the argument is, right? Like delay tactic. It's not going to happen, right? Sort of thing. But okay. I said to myself, and I told this to Michael, who's in that meeting. I told him.
Rozelle?
Michael Rozelle, yep.
Okay.
Because he was like, man, he's... I'm like, listen, look, Pred's on episode 1. We're on season, 4. He's about to learn how egregious and how much red tape there is and why it's important that any government document needs to be given in written form or just posted the docket so they have to officially give a response, right? Because any words said in meetings or whatever are meaningless because they can be conveniently forgotten or your words can be twisted and there is no evidence of foul play, right? So Monday comes around, right? And up until this point in that same week, I had witnessed marshals dictate to officers how they should be charging individuals and saying that they have PC despite not showing them how you arrive at that articulation of probable cause. And this is not the first time, but this has been a series of times I had witnessed this take place. And, you know, I raised my voice up because I told them, I'm like, listen, how are you going to tell them to press these charges on people without showing them how you arrive to that conclusion? Because inherently, if those officers just charge based on A plus B and they cannot articulate how they arrived at C, that is not only inherently a rights violation, you're kind of confusing them. And why is this not going through any official channels like High Command, and that they can, through their own, you know, way of doing things, inform, train the officers? The response was, we don't train, we only oversee, right? And I said, well, you can't have one but not the other. I cannot tell somebody, you know, fly this plane. All you got to just turn on the fucking, ignition and hit the gas. No, you got to show them the rest. And if you believe that that individual, let's say, wants to fly, but they don't know how or whatever, you got to show them it, right? And otherwise, how are you able to ascertain whether they can fly or not? In the same sense, how as marshals are you coming to the conclusion that people are not charging appropriately? Because all you have is a report and your particular personal belief as to you get where I'm going with this? Like it's just,
yeah,
there is no assessment. So now I'd already been kind of heated about this, and I brought it up to another marshal. I'm like, listen, why are they coming up and not approaching high command like a normal organization, right? You go to the top and you say, this is something we're observing, and we would like to see this resolved. How are we going to do that? That's constructive. But instead, yap into a bunch of officers that have different levels of skill sets, right? You're just going to add confusion. Now these people are getting directed like, do I listen to my high command? Do I listen to a marshal? Like, it doesn't resolve anything.
No, just confusion.
Next day happens, and this is Justice Angel comes in. This is yesterday. And she walks into the LSPD meeting and tells them that they are taking over both departments, in so many words. Have you had a chance to read the new Marshals, the update to the Angel Act?
I have not, no.
When you get a chance, it's in bold. It starts with the SASM with jurisdictional authority over the state of San Andreas, Pretty much, they put that in. And her citation was that they were auditing offices. And they believe that their high command is firing them without cause and that she will protect them. While Daisy and Peters, A, were not made aware of this, and B, she did this to her subordinates in there. At the end of that meeting, officers were afraid, scared, didn't know what the fuck was happening, and they're hearing none of this from high command, just as they haven't for any other things, because they are not being approached. So in other words, unilateral management, which was just quite frankly gross. And then it got worse. I received the following text message. And this is gonna, I may need your assistance on this. I stood up after their announcement. Oh yeah, and she said she's gonna be going around auditing offices to make sure they know what they're doing and to make sure that they're not, like, I don't know, some fucking crazy like audit bullshit. But it was on this smoke of like high command doesn't know what they're doing, and I believe them. Mind you, they have spoken to individuals. His Peters. He's
Hello there.
I'm in my disguise. I got a wig glued on my head. I'm undercover as dark.
They had spoken to a select few officers who have told them X, Y, and Z is happening. She didn't consult me. She did not consult the Peters. She did not consult Daisy. Made the conclusion that what she heard fit her narrative, and therefore she made a legislative change. She also spoke to Bones, the sheriff of Blaine County, and about a week ago, and Sera Nade, feel free to stop me because I'm hitting like a bunch of bullet points here. A lot's happened.
Yeah.
But a couple days back, the helicopters went from $15 million to 1.8, and all of a sudden, PD's getting hit up with how do we get civilian licenses. We've been hamstrung by Blaine County having the Air One cert and not giving it to any LSPD officers. So we've waited like nearly 3 months to issue these, stonewalled by a different county. So I told Daisy and Peters, like, enough of this shit. You guys run 90% of the fucking population, right? That in order for y'all to function, you need control of your own interceptors, and Air One, you need your own certificates. If you do not, it jeopardizes the safety of the county. Because if tomorrow BCSO gets reshuffled, well, then what? Now you're waiting for how long to deal with that? You need your autonomy. And if you do not have that autonomy, not only can we not, like, we can't even get simple helicopter certs. What's going to happen if those people running those certs now up north disappear? Now you're waiting for what? Interceptors? You know what I mean? You have crime happening down here. You can't,
So I'm a little out of the loop here,
Yes.
perhaps. How does that work when acting in Los Santos County? BCSO's a sub-jurisdiction.
Correct.
How would they have authority?
They
over
don't.
certification?
Peters and Daisy have been exceptionally nice to my personal distaste, and I've told them as much. They're very nice people. They see the best in folks and hope for cooperation, while these guys have consistently fucked them in the ass. And so there has, for about, I'd say, 3/4 of my tenure last term, they tried to cooperate, but it would usually result in non-cooperation. And so about 2 weeks back, after multiple LSPD officers were killed and by Blaine County officers, and they didn't give a fuck, while Blaine County officers were targeting suspensions and firings, while simultaneously disregarding when their own officers were reported to be, for example, had guns put into the mouths of ICU patients, had their phones searched, were targeting officers criminally, dating gangbangers, and putting out hits. All of that was brushed under the table. The Daisy and Peters, among other things, too. I don't want to speak too much on your behalf, Peters. I'm just kind of, summarizing.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Is they said, you know what? We're going to take full jurisdictional control. And immediately, they contested the legislation on sub-authorities. It was rejected. And now a couple days later, the marshals have taken over. So they've kind of seen this as a oh, you're not working. You get what I'm saying? Like they're kind of causing discontent and giving their mother angel reasons to succumb to more power. And I know it may seem like I'm jumping dots here, right? The connection, but I'm sort of skipping some of the details for sake of,
It is a lot that you're telling me. So.
Yeah. Now, this is, I want to go back to where it's kind of relevant to myself and the county directly is, Daisy and Moss have had a very challenging 3 months in which they consistently get stonewalled. I've been stonewalled as well. So their ability to do the things that they want to do has been difficult. And I've been trying to assist where I can. But so I made this call about I told these guys, listen, you need to split the certs. Otherwise, the people are going to suffer. Your department's going to suffer. It doesn't make logical sense and organizational sense for a different entity to control how you implement key police resources in the city. After that meeting yesterday where Angel said, well, a couple officers that hate Daisy and Peters anyways, and the LSPD told me that, she spoke to a handful of people, right? And made a unilateral decision that they need oversight at the level where marshals can now dictate SOPs, hirings and firings. Pretty much they're high command now. They're the commissioner's office, where every Tom, Dick, and Harry marshal now has control over all departments. Now, let me expand on this. After that announcement, I went up and said, I'm going to be conducting my own audit to make sure that officers are not getting bullied by the marshals, which I will be conducting. Because that's effectively what's happening, and it's leading them astray, and it's going to be issues for the entire populace. Angel sent me a text message, and I'm going to go ahead and read it to you verbatim, and I'll send you a copy as well.
All right.
She states, "Hi, Nino. This is Justice Angel. I'm formally requesting that you stop interfering with the day-to-day operations of LSPD HC and their high command." I assume she meant high command and command, but if you have any further questions, contact me via email or written letter. Have a nice day. I respond, "Hi, Angel. Thank you for your vague note. If you want me to stop interfering, it would help to know what you're talking about. Without specifics, this feels more like a hollow threat than a serious request. I'll consider my options and reach out." Mind you, I don't know what she's referencing at this point. And she responds, "Hello, Nino. Ordering LSPD High Command to perform specific actions while hanging their employment over their head is inappropriate conduct. Not only did this not happen, but
Yeah, let me
there's no
interject.
evidence of this.
I don't. Nothing has ever been said to anyone about Nino firing us over getting shit done. I don't even think you've said like that. That is.
I have never threatened to fire them. Now, I have demanded that. Now, yes, but
Do you think it's just a bluff?
no. Well, let me continue with the message, and then I'll fill in the blank here. So this has not happened, and I know, by the way, that neither Peters or Daisy would have went to Angel and said as much, right? So she is already at this point claiming that I am holding firings over the heads of Daisy and Peters without talking to them or talking to me, but she's already come to that conclusion and given me a warning, right? And then she reads, threatening to replace high command if they don't split certs at your leisure, for example, is not appropriate. Please consider that going forward. Now, that's not how that conversation went, and I'm like, who the fuck would have even mentioned this to her, let alone in this particular way? And how is she, as the head of this, coming to that conclusion, right? Like, this is a fucking judge. This is literally hearsay. So I respond, a simple life lesson. It's important to understand facts before making knee-jerk conclusions based on hearsay and gossip. It would do you well instead of making baseless accusations and idle threats. And so she responds, so you're going to continue interfering in the daily operations of LSPD High Command? AKA, like, yeah, she doesn't have fucking facts to back it up. Now she's, you know, I don't know how the fuck she twists that. And then goes, also, didn't you write whatever? She said some bullshit. And I said, she said, remind me my memory is failing in my old age. I told her that's not the only thing failing. And I ended with, given the unprofessional nature of this conversation, any concerns or requests can be done so with citation and reference, as our office does not operate on rumor. Open letters and emails work for us. So, now, Peters, correct me if I'm wrong. Did I ever threaten to fire you and Daisy?
Nope.
So,
Nope.
And a little bit more.
I don't know where that even came from.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of one of the main questions here. Is where did that come from? Is it just made up?
The belief is that Bones, who's the sheriff of BCSO, after being informed of the split certs, Daisy sort of inferred that I could fire them theoretically over the notion of failing as a chief. Right?
I don't think it was even that, to be 100% honest. I think it came from Bones stating, you know, you don't have to listen to Nino. If this is what I think it's stemming from, I could be wrong. I have no idea. But when we met with Bones and we're like, look, we have to fucking do this. We have to do this. Our mayor is telling us to do this. And he said, you know, you don't have to listen to the mayor, right? And I said, what the fuck are you talking about? The mayor is my boss. And he's like, no, it's not. I'm like, or he said, no, he's not. And I said, you are completely, I don't know if it's misinformed or disinformed at this point, but as the chief and the ass chief, we answer directly to the mayor. So that is literally from my recollection, that's all that was said. And it's kind of like
it's misconstrued into telephone. Angels run with it because it fits her fucking narrative, and these text messages clearly read as her attempt to resolve. This is so. In order to impeach someone, you have to give them notice of like, you need to fix this. This is her like scuffed version of attempting to do so, but it's not based on any facts. It's literally hearsay, which Bones, I don't know if you've ever met Bones, but it's like a child with like hyper ADHD, reading comprehension skills, writing comprehension skills. Guy can like probably had trouble putting triangles inside those little, like, those little, like, toys where you have to put the fucking shapes in the box. Good guy. I like him. But unsurprisingly, this guy misconstrued what was stated, brought it to Angel, and she's like, aha, got him, boys, and sent me this text. So
have you considered that this may be a attempt to cause division, debase your authority, and then remove you?
Yes, I think she's doing the first step of impeachment, but she's doing it in such a dumb way that there is no evidence of this taking place. It never happened. So inherently there is no corrective measure. But it also is a gross misunderstanding of what is written in the Constitution, which to me is concerning. Do you have your tablet?
I do. The legislation section, for some reason, is giving me an error code.
Take a look at click reports, and you should be able to see it there. Oh, yeah, and she ends with "see you in court," which I think is an idle threat. Personally, I would love for her to take it to court, because I think it's a great way for the public to see the way that they operate, quite frankly.
What are you referencing specifically again here?
In the Constitution?
Yeah, just in the Constitution.
Okay. So this is kind of where we talked about, she's effectively saying the mayor can only appoint a chief, and that's his job. That's it. Like, it's over, right? And then secondly, and she says this in writing, right? Secondly, we have this legislative change that she put in, which makes the marshals like a higher level of authority. So let's start there. And if you search marshals under reports, and if you scroll down, you'll see a bolded section that says the SASM with jurisdictional authority over a state of San Andreas. And Sera Nade, if any point you disagree with me, please do let me know. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
this is like my
taking
interpretation.
A moment
Yes.
to load.
Yep. No worries.
Yeah, it just does not want to load.
No worries. No worries. So were you able to load the Constitution by any chance?
Yeah, that is the only.
Oh.
After that, it does
So-
not want to load anything else.
A lot of what I believe is transpired, and I do want you to, after this, when you have an opportunity, when look through the Constitution and look through the San Andreas state marshals and like all this legislation, and I'd like to hear your opinion after you have some time to kind of think on it. But the way, when I look at legislative authorities, I see that the DOJ shall have legislative authority over all legal and jurisdictional matters within San Andreas. It shall ensure the enforcement of laws, uphold justice, and protect the rights of citizens. Precedents set by justices will act as common law. Okay? The DOJ shall have a law enforcement agency that is responsible for overseeing other law enforcement offices. They are also responsible for preserving the integrity and safety of the state, the Constitution, citizen rights, and the law of the state. Now, the first thing that I read in this that is, to me, key is that last sentence says they are also responsible. This is in reference to the DOJ. It is not in reference to the law enforcement agency referenced in the sentence prior to it. And as such, the conclusion becomes that this law enforcement agency His responsibility begins and ends with oversight and does not extend to being responsible for preserving the integrity and whatnot. Now, this is a key point because when you look at these San Andreas State Marshals, that they have misquoted the Constitution itself. In other words, it's not even a copy and paste. They re-amalgamated. Is that the word? You know, when you take two sentences and like reconstruct it? They reconstructed the sentence and put it in quotes to give the guys as though that it was taken from the Constitution when it wasn't. In which they reference that the Constitution gives them the right to do the combination of these sentences, which is not the case. So now, but regardless, even with that aside, if we then move on to bullet point number 3, which says Los Santos County, it states Los Santos County, the entity, shall have legislative authority over its jurisdiction and be responsible for the governance, public services, and local laws that pertain to the residents and operations within Santos. So the organization, the entity of Los Santos County has like authority over it.
Yes.
Right? And authority is not oversight, it's authority. Now, it then says the Los Santos mayor is responsible for the governance of Los Santos law, and the Los Santos Police Department is responsible for the county's public services. The chief of police shall be appointed by Los Santos County mayor. This inherently, when I read this, I do not see how the conclusion that Angel made could ever dictate that the mayor of Los Santos should not ever work with Los Santos LSPD in order for our collective entity of Los Santos County being able to be continue to be able to fulfill our duties of responsibility of governance, public services, and local laws.
Yeah. Well, in the first line, right, it says public services, and then by extension, the Los Santos Police Department is responsible for the public services. So the LSPD falls directly under the mayor's office.
Yes.
There's nothing confusing about that.
Precisely. Unless you were to, what's the word, dissect the sentences in isolation. And like sort of, you'd have to be very, I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't know how you can read it the way that Angel did. And
you would have to severely bend the ideology of what the Constitution says.
Yes.
And that takes a lot of mental gymnastics.
Yeah.
For at least me reading this, to try and put myself in her shoes, that would require a lot of mental gymnastics to get there.
Yes. And mind you that before I became mayor, we had already decided that we were going to do an audit of all state legislation, because there is a lot that is written where there's been a lot of encroaching of power, and we have noted these things over time. We just haven't had the bandwidth to sort of tackle it. But now that I have been, for the second time, threatened to not fulfill my duties as an elected official who's taken an oath for this county by not only the head marshal, but effectively the head justice, to me, she is trying to force me into what would be dereliction of duty. And the first time she did this is where she demanded I alter. I have these sliders in the mayor's office, and it allows me to adjust the fine and time, and that covers the entire state. Whereas Pred has a slider that changes Sorry. I have the fines. He has the times. And after Angel told me that I was unsure if I could change this thing, and because she was under fire, there's this whole thing where like she was getting a lot of flack, where Peters wanted to reduce someone's sentence from like 900 months down to like 200, and then he decided on 500, and she fucking crashed out on him.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. That was
how long ago
insane.
was this?
I call it a month and a half ago, 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Was this? Did that have anything to do with the Den Act?
Yeah.
Yes.
So essentially, what happened is I was doing so people were coming up, right? They were getting involved in situations where, you know, I mean, it's like you open fire on an officer. Obviously, we have officers injured. Nobody was murdered. And while I am here to kind of like uphold the law, for someone to go in and sit in jail for fucking 900 months over one situation is absolutely asinine. So I cut it down to what I believed was an acceptable time, and it was like, you don't have the authority, you're overstepping. I am the justice, you have to do this. If you don't, I will fire you.
She threatened to fire you directly.
I can't remember if she directly threatened to fire me or not, but I'm pretty sure that it was like
She
probably not
often
directly.
gives inferences, right, of threat. I also don't, because I heard some of it from outside because she was screaming so loud. I heard it from outside, literally, as 15 officers. Like, she did it in a lobby. But she then wrote the Den Act that day. And then Ventura from BCSO leaked this to Miguel Elmarian, who's a gang member, who then posted it on Twitter that this happened. Angel then said, I'm not doing anything about it. I'm actually fixing this soon. I'm writing legislation right now, right? Because she was caught, right, doing this. In other words, taking away police discretion, which has existed from as long as I remember.
Yeah, that's a basic function of a police officer throughout their daily, time on duty.
Mm-hmm. And so now I didn't want any part of this. I don't remember who I was with, but I was very intentionally like, I want nothing to do with this, right? This is not my problem. Let them handle it. And then she tweeted out that Nino and Andy control fine and time, not me. On Twitter.
Wait, what?
Yep. And so I'm like, this fucking motherfucker. So I call her up, and mind you, up until this point, Sera Nade, I can be I can be very sharp with my words. I've been very professional up until this point, right? And I even called up and I'm like, hey, Angel, like, what's going on with the twat? Like, why? What do you mean me and Andy control this? Like, can you explain your thought process before I jump to a conclusion as to the intent of your tweet? Maybe it was, mistyped. And she said, oh, yeah, you guys have sliders. And, one of you controls the time and one of you controls the fine. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know if I'm supposed to touch that. I think it's broken or something. Soze may have told me something, because I remember Soze telling me a while back, like, something about it. I just don't remember what. And so I didn't touch this thing. So I went in the office and I took a look. I'm like, oh, look, the time is disabled and the fine isn't. And she's like, oh, yeah, that's right. You have the fine one and Andy has the time one. And I'm like, are you sure I can change this? She said, yes, you can. And everyone gives you shit. It's on me. Okay, bet. So this is in the midst of Hell Week, where like everyone's fucking losing their mind. So I announce I have reduced fines by 50% to try to calm the upheaval, etc., etc. Everyone's like, yay, okay. Things are calm. Ventura, who is a common element in the majority of these storylines, calls Angel and says this is a problem because Blaine County who had been taking 95s from down here up to Blaine County so that Blaine County's budget goes up, says this is going to destroy our budget. So Angel calls me, conveniently forgets everything she had told me, and says, I need you to change it back. I didn't know it affects the entire state. Despite her previously not only acknowledging it once, but 3 times. While I am telling her what I see and everything. And I'm like, yeah, but you said, but I control this, right? And she's like, yeah, that's in your control. I'm like, okay. And she's like, I think you need to talk to Andy. I'm like, okay, yeah, well, you know, well, I'll talk to her when I can. Can you change it back now? Yeah, I'm going to think about it, right? And it hangs up. Ventura is now tweeting, Nino has reduced the cost of shooting a cop by 50%. Not once did I make that statement. Not once did I even think that statement, right? It was just 50% across the board, right? That's everything, not this specific. Mm-hmm. And so I'm with Tilly, and I look at my MDT, and I'm like, man, I didn't know it was so, like how crazy is the charge for it? And that's when I noticed, within 10 minutes, Angel went and changed the times, the fine on the back end. Does that make sense? There's like a base fine, and the slider adjusts the base fine. She made it so the 50% is now back to the 100% by changing the base fine. So she multiplied on her end times 2 in that 10-minute window. And so I call her back and I'm like, what's going on here?
Wait, did she still want you to adjust it again?
Well, because I had told her that I'll think about it, she decided, fuck you thinking about it. I'm going to go change the baseline fines so that it reverts your changes. And the way that she did it in the back end is only killing a cop and the marshal related charges, she doubled. And so I call her up and I'm like, what the, did you change these things? Like, what the fuck? I'm like, what's the point of this slider then? And what's going to happen when I talk to Andy and we decide to bump it up 20%? Now you just like fucked it all up. Like, can you change it back? And she's like, talk to Andy first, move it back to 100%. I'm like, turn it back. So, and give me like a second to fucking talk to somebody about it. Right? I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I think through my decisions. I don't like react. Exactly. And not to mention, you have now put me in a position where you want me to put it back up and then effectively take all the heat that you've been taking all day, right? Like, I know where this is going. And I'm like, I need you to move it back. I recommend you move it back. I'm like, are you asking me or telling me? Right? And at the end of it, she goes, I'm demanding you do it. I'm ordering you to do it. And I said, Angel, do you ever use logic when you make your decisions? And she got fucking really pissed off, and I hung up the phone and put it back. I then found out from the governor that it was always in my purview and not the purview of the DOJ. So
well, that's what I inferred from what you said.
Yes.
What your conversations with her were.
So I bring this up because this would not be the first time that she has encroached on her powers through a bastardized understanding of the powers that she's been given. It's just that she has not been challenged as, and I don't want to pat myself on the back too hard, but Andy very much, I don't have a problem with Andy, the person, but she was very much politically aligned with BCSO Success and the Marshals, right? And so politically, we have very polarizing views on what is up and what is down, right? But so she inherently would never challenge the Marshal. My office has the will and some level of bandwidth, but even that was, there's just not enough time. It's a lot of fucking work, right? But now it's happened again. not just with me, but with Peters, and now we're sort of a spot where like, hey, we need to stop pushing back and challenging what the state is doing, because it's a lot of work, right? Not just the case, but actually putting everything together, whereas they can just open their fucking MDT and edit things, right? So, there's more Sera Nade. Pred got raided yesterday.
Wait, what? Huh?
So, and Peters, Daisy didn't tell me anything. It's like out there, right? He bought, and I'm gonna give you every citation, all right, just so you know that this is not coming from Peters and Daisy and company. I have to send out checks, right? Events, etc., etc. At around 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern on what was it? Monday night. What day is it? Tuesday? No, Sunday night. Sunday night, I send out these checks, and I have like a mental memory of like, I got some level of photographic memory, right? Or whatever you want to call it. Blaine County has been at 20 million for like a minute, right? It's slowly going up, but it's been sitting there, whereas our account goes up. And Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, it was still at 20. I would have noticed if it went down or went up by a mil. Then yesterday morning, I wake up and I do my morning routine, have my coffee, I go to the bank. I always like to look at what the budget is sitting at, right? In case it goes down or up or whatever. And I notice it's at 18 mil. I'm like, oh shit, Brad bought that warehouse he wanted for like his like farming shit or whatever. He wanted to buy like a fucking warehouse. I'm like, oh cool, he bought it. All right, cool. I get a call later that evening. Oh, no, I'm talking to Dundee. He's got a whole bunch of problems about shit. Which I'm not going to get into, but it's actually funny. But he gets a call saying that, like, apparently Pred's warehouse is getting raided. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Number one, the guy literally must have bought this thing at night and went to sleep, and he's not awake. How the fuck did it get raided? It then comes up later that it was over a fucking gun. So I deduce the following. If it was criminal negligence of a firearm, and Peters, I want to be very clear here. I do not want you to confirm or deny any of this.
Yeah, I'm not saying shit. I'm keeping my mind. I know, because I'm not saying shit.
Is that if it was a singular firearm, and mind you, I took a lot of criminal negligence of firearm cases for a lot of people before running for mayor. Is that a singular one? Sorry?
You want to know a little interesting note? I was the one who wrote that legislation that enacted the criminally negligent use of a firearm.
Oh, long time ago?
Yeah, many years ago.
Oh my God, that is wild.
Okay, continue.
So, if they had found one of his weapons on somebody, right, and it was not reported stolen, then whatchamacallit, that would just be a singular charge. It would be a warrant. It would not be a raid. It is not a pattern. Therefore, they would have had to have found 2 or 3. In order to have conducted that investigation, it could not have began and ended yesterday. It would have had to have spanned a couple days. Now, if it spanned a couple days, then said investigators should have noted, unless they could not have missed the fact that he only had an apartment up until Sunday night, 12 hours, 10 hours before this raid took place. So, therefore, why would they raid him while he is asleep and the motel manager is not going to get them keys to the apartment where the stockpile of guns would have logically been? What? But when they went in, raided his fucking warehouse, inside was what was the past owners like fucking weed up, which reasonably could not have been constructed or put together. But I stood on the roof of Mission Row PD as Angel walked in to a circle of me, Daisy, Tyler, and Maxwell, speaking about this cert thing and the text messages that I received, and like, what the fuck are they trying to tell me not to be involved in? Like, what is this bullshit? Like, right? Trying to figure that mess out. And she walks up and she goes, hey, the LSPD did a great job with this raid and we helped. No, she led it. I witnessed her lead it. And well, I'm just going to say this, is that LSPD High Command knew nothing about this taking place. So this entire investigation was underhanded, hidden away from the masses. And for them to have found these weapons and decided to raid this warehouse is insane and screams malicious. Because as someone rather tapped in with the civilians of all types, people do not get raided on stockpiling very often. So how all of a sudden is Pred getting raided just out of the fucking blue? Someone was searching and digging for a reason. And my conclusion is it's probably some fucking Shift 3 cop that wants to fucking, you know. Anyways.
Political motivation.
What was Angel's, what was her role in this whole thing as well, is kind of what baffles me. I mean, obviously she had a relationship with Pred in the past. They are, I think, ex, and they were previously married, right?
To my knowledge, yeah.
Is there the, and then also former employee as well. I mean, there's like a bunch of counts here where, I mean, it could be construed as malice.
Well, them being ex-partners and, you know, formerly being married is a pretty big red flag. At the very core of it, at least the public perception of non-bias, of not having bias towards Pred, that just doesn't exist. That's inherent conflict there.
Nino, I got something I need to email you, but it's kind of like, I don't.
Yeah, go for it.
It's kind of like for you and you only.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know if it's a good idea or not.
Storm is here. Hey, Sera Nade, I got to go to this command meeting. Are you going to be around an hour after Storm? I know I threw a bunch at you. It wasn't expected, but I feel like this context is probably pretty necessary in the grand scheme of things we're working on.
Yeah, I'll be available for further conversations. I have some other things that unrelated to this that I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, it's exciting times.
Turbulent.
Yeah.
Another word you.
Yeah. Oh my God. I will say,